One of the other things that we did do was a complete studio rebuild. As I said, our facilities, and there's our call sign, were very dilapidated. This is actually just a picture of the studio just before we started ripping it apart. The mixer in there was installed back in '97. Presenters had treated it poorly. The equipment was failing. There were times where we were in the studio and the mixer would just die on us for 2 to 3 minutes and then it would just power back up. Completely unreliable. You can't have that for a primary studio. So we started working out what we could do. We originally thought, okay, well, let's try and get it fixed. We realised how much it would cost to do that. Didn't think it was worth our time. We looked into other things. We actually managed to find spare equipment on eBay. There was actually a community radio station up in New South Wales that we brought a new mixer from, well, a second-hand mixer from, and we sent some of our volunteers up to grab it from Melbourne. I think, what was it, a 72-hour return trip, or 48 hours? Who knows? Either way, they got drinks when they got back, so they were pretty happy. The studio was a nightmare in terms of the cabling that was left there. As I said, the cabling in our studios had been there for near 20 plus years. Audio was coming out of phase, audio was coming in hot. It just didn't work. We pretty much, except for the microphones and a few of the devices that we do use in there, replaced all of the wiring with computer network cable. It turns out this stuff is absolutely brilliant for feeding through balanced line audio to your compressors and everything else. We also ripped out the carpet. We managed to find someone who could donate us a whole bunch of new carpet tiles. And yeah, then we started going through and doing a complete rebuild. One thing that we did do though, and I'll see if I can bring it up, was we actually installed, before we started doing the installation, I owned a GoPro, so I stuck it up in the top right-hand corner and told it to take a photo, I think once every 10 seconds. And we ended up producing a video that took, I think, 10 minutes to put together and to put online, which basically showed the entire rebuild of what we did. I'll just see if I can get to the right point here. So the great thing here was the community was actually seeing what we were doing. They got to see us rip everything apart and just redevelop everything. From a marketing perspective, this was brilliant because people actually said, wait a minute, the station's alive. People are actually doing something to make it sound better and to make it be better. And we ended up putting it on YouTube. We put it on our new website, on our social media. I think the CBAA Twitter account even retweeted it. Just because we all do this, but the thing is, people who aren't directly involved in a radio station have no idea what it takes to do what it is that we do, and they find it as a very unique insight. So from a marketing perspective, if you've got someone who's got a GoPro or something similar, stick the camera up in the right-hand corner of your building and just tear it away. And you can have a lot of fun, and it's something that's quick and everyone will watch. For us to do what we did, finding second-hand equipment, doing a lot of the cabling work ourselves and rebuilding all the infrastructure, it cost us about $25,000. We did look at going through some of the commercial vendors outside. They quoted us anywhere between $60,000 to $70,000 for half of what we managed to achieve by ourselves. The key thing for us was just finding people that had an interest in tech. Daniel, who's standing over here, I dragged him in off the street. We were friends prior to him being involved with the radio station, but I said, hey, do you want to have some fun? We've got some broadcast facilities that we're going to tear apart and rebuild. We found people that we could use in the community. We gave them ownership over the project. So we've got Steve, who was our resident tech, seriously, who was our resident tech. He gave us a lot of guidance. Both Daniel and myself are both both work in IT, but neither of us really did much with audio. So it was a good learning lesson for both of us. But from there, we started working out how we were going to rebuild our facilities. This room here is actually quite a luxury compared to what we had. Originally, all of our transmission equipment sat inside of a shower receptacle. And best of all, you actually had to climb under the rack in order to get to the other side to do any changes. So we had a spare room. We threw everything out that was inside of there. Found sorry, the video is still playing. Found a room that we could put it in, got a $500 air conditioner, installed it, and best of all, the room's a lot cooler than what it was. We're able to broadcast at our full power now, and we're also not broadcasting out of phase either, which is fantastic. Just for comparison, this is what the primary studio at Sunbury Radio used to look like. Literally, electrical tape had to go onto buttons because they were that bad. switches would automatically activate by themselves, things would just turn off without knowing. We found, as I said, a brand new mixer, had that installed, and then from there we started to really start putting everything together. As you can see, we've got our radio DJ software in the corner there. We've got our countdown clock on the next screen. That was actually something that I put together, and if anyone needs something like this, I'm happy to give you my software. It's literally a web page, it just tells you what the time is, and it counts down to the hour. One thing that we found with a lot of our presenters that do podcasting was they needed to know when the recording on the logging computer finished, because if they went over time by 1 or 2 minutes, all of a sudden they'd have to wait another hour before they could get their hands onto the logs. I think a lot of people still use Novacast. We ended up throwing that out. We found another piece of software that was only $29 that allowed us to record in high fidelity AAC and MP3. And if anyone wants those details, I'm happy to tell you at the end of the session. The only new items that we actually did buy were the microphone stands and lights. Everything else we pretty much had donated to us, be it the chairs, the carpet, everything else. The lights we end up reinstalling, and one of our sponsors actually donated us the sign. One tip I will give is never get a sign like that and stick it behind the main presenter's microphone, because you will get reflections and you'll end up really regretting the fact that you did that. But this is what our console now currently looks like. A heck of a lot better, our audio quality is better, our studios are now linked, something that people have been waiting 10 years for. And to be honest, we're now in a position where we can actually take the station forward. The framework and the infrastructure that's in place now gives us room to grow. And one thing that all stations should do whenever they go into thinking about building a new studio or rebuilding a studio is don't build for what you have. Build for what it is that you think you might need in the future. We have 4 spare channels there that we can now use from anything from putting in a 3rd studio through to whatever else new gadget comes in the future. By having that room for growth, we're not going to end up spending more money in the future to try and retrofit. We've got the capabilities that we need for when we need them, not just for what we have now. That would probably be my #1 recommendation.